Okay, welcome everyone to our ELTA session, our ELTA webinar to discuss legal tech in DACH countries. So I have the great opportunity to moderate this panel conversation. Thank you, Holger. Thank you, ELTA. Thank you, everyone here, for your interest and for joining us. So here, the experts for today are Ioannis Martinis here, who is one of the two ELTA ambassadors for Switzerland. Ioannis is the head of legal tech and a member of the managing team of Rechtsschutz, right? Coop.
It's Coop Rechtsschutz, yeah. Coop Legal Protection Insurance. Thanks.
So we also have Wolfgang Pichler, who is the chief evangelist in MANZ. He's also ELTA ambassador for Austria. Hi, Wolfgang. We have Alan Ragueneau. So Alan is appearing as with my name. I'm afraid we don't see you, Alan, but you're there. I sent him my Zoom link, so I'm afraid that Alan for today is Laura Fauqueur. But
no worries. That's what happened with innovation. What can we do?
Yeah. So Alan is our second ELTA ambassador for Switzerland. He's also the CEO of Dentons Europe Next Law in-house solutions. So hi, Alan. Thanks for being there. And last but not least, Henrik Wehrs, who is our ELTA ambassador for Germany. He is also the legal tech manager for continental Europe for Alan and Overy, and also a fellow legal hackers organizer. So thank you, all of you, for being there. We have a tight schedule for today. So we have organized it so that we can be at the same time of interest and brief for our listeners today. We have quite a crowd here. So we really want to provide you with an overview of the state of legal tech in countries, in Germany, in Austria, and in Switzerland. So we will start with this, a very brief overview. Our speakers know they have 7 minutes to discuss each of their countries, and then we will go on with some specific questions to really make sure that we have a broad but still relatively in-depth overview of the legal tech in all these countries. We might or might not have some time for your questions at the end. If we don't, you know where to find us. You can actually know more about all our speakers on the ELTA very nice website. They have a very nice biography in there, each of them. So that's why I also didn't take too much time to introduce them. You can just go to our website and contact each of them if you're interested. So let's start with this brief overview of the state of legal tech and the hot topics. So we're going to start with Switzerland. So please, Ioannis, go ahead and tell us about legal tech in Switzerland.
Sure. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me. While Switzerland is, of course, a wonderful country, the topic of legal tech tends to be a little bit of a tough one here. Legal tech providers have to operate within a relatively small market. Platforms that focus on scalable solutions for consumer face the challenge that Switzerland has only 9 million inhabitants who also live in 3 different language regions. And of course, all software providers assure me always that language diversity is not a problem and that their solutions are so-called language agnostic. But in reality, you all know language is still a hurdle, also in financial terms. I mean, offering in everything in 4 languages, German, French, Italian, and it's not retro-Romanic, which is the thing here, but also English, due to the large numbers of foreigners in Switzerland. To do this, it's time-consuming, it's expensive. Furthermore, we have a pronounced federalism and a fragmented legal situation in Switzerland, as some of the 26 cantons have their own laws. Referring now to legal professionals, lawyers, the majority in Switzerland acknowledge the ongoing transformation within the legal industry. That's a given, but breaking away from traditional frameworks, incorporating new technologies, remains a challenge, especially for small law firms, which actually represent the majority of law firms of the law firm market in Switzerland. More than 80% of law firms employ 20 or fewer lawyers. So I would say it's actually corporate legal departments, large commercial law firms, and a few, some would say just two, forward-thinking legal protection insurers in particular, who are taking the implementation of advanced technology in the legal sector seriously. And these entities also represent the most intriguing partners, I would say, for legal tech companies to be their customer. Yeah. What else? I would say this situation is expected to persist through 2024 and beyond. But on the other hand, one can say price sensitivity is not as pronounced in Switzerland as it is in other countries. And as long as these services are convenient and reduce any litigation costs or promise a quick solution, there is potential to find customers also in Switzerland, because it's everywhere, and with everything, convenience is key, right? And let me close with this. Despite its small size, the legal market in Switzerland is highly lucrative. According to Statista, I don't know the exact numbers, but according to Statista, the combined annual revenue generated by the legal, tax, and audit sectors in Switzerland amounts to approximately 12 billion euros or Swiss francs, which is apparently the same right now per year. Furthermore, we will hear about a lot more about Gen AI. The hype around generative AI has had a positive impact on legal tech sector as well. Lawyers have become at least slightly more aware this and last year that technological solutions can increase their efficiency. And clients and citizens appreciate the convenience of using online services for legal matters. And this current state also creates opportunities for legal tech vendors to attract investors. Overall, these developments provide an encouraging foundation for innovative minds to propel further advancements in the legal tech field in Switzerland. I would say that could be a short overview of the legal tech situation and market in Switzerland. That's from my side.
Great. Thank you, Ioannis. 6 minutes. Perfect. Now let's see what happens in Germany with Henrik. Please go ahead, Henrik.
Thank you, Laura. I think you started with the ecosystem when you mentioned not only ELTA, but also legal hackers before. And I think it's impossible when we look at this audience here to get the right depth or the right niche of current state in legal tech, because we all differ a bit in what we consider to be in legal tech, but certainly the ecosystem itself is strong and growing and moving in Germany. And therefore, I need to mention ELTA and the Legal Tech Verband, which is Legal Tech Association, certainly legal hackers. And there are even unofficial WhatsApp groups between all these different ecosystem members. And that goes from people from the Ministry of Justice being involved in these WhatsApp groups, or from the alternative legal service providers, up to very good connections to legal departments. So it's although it's cluttered and many stakeholders are involved, there seems to be a core of people who really want to look abroad and want to see what the others are doing. But the whole market is still driven by the access to justice market, and there is where all the innovation still comes from. And I think me looking from a law firm's perspective, or from a bigger law firm's perspective, this is something we still admire quite a bit, and there it all comes from. So the access to justice one, with whether it's passenger rights or whether it was diesel, is still a huge driver of that whole scene. And I don't want to start with the whole AI bandwagon yet, but all these players have been pushing forward, and I'd say many of them, of these stakeholders, and I'll mention in a second, utilized AI for the benefit already, and their benefit could only be marketing at this point, to be honest. But I think what we see and what differs from last year is that even departments like know-how become more sexy now with the possibilities of AI. As a German, looking into Germany, I always have to say it's not only about getting things done and making things possible, but also raising concerns that might not be necessarily there. But I think that's very important to mention. And strangely, legal departments, especially banks, have started to ask, and that could be consultants or alternative legal service providers or even law firms, could you please tell us what's technically possible without telling us what's impossible from a legal perspective? We just want to know what we could do if we were allowed to do everything. And I think that's an example how that will change a little bit, at least in Germany, that they want to know what's technically possible, what could be done in Asia, what has been done in the US market, what might be impossible from German or European regulation, but they are keen to understand what's technically possible because they might think it'll be done anyway by someone, and therefore we should at least know what's technically possible, even if we're never allowed to do it. So the different stakeholders differ quite a lot, and whether it's big publishers or the legal departments, again, after the whole digitization bandwagon, with that fear of missing out and saying we are at the very beginning of it all, we are back to that at the moment. So it's a lot of fear of missing out, not necessarily with starting to decide to procure any AI-driven solution yet, but and that might be a bit of the big law firms' perspective here. They all say, "Oh, we are at the very beginning of it, and we are very bad in what we did so far," and that's what everyone says. And from time to time, we forget, or we don't see, or they don't see that they're actually already somewhere, and that, for example, even automatic translation has helped a lot in driving that AI bandwagon a little bit better. So fear of missing out is huge, and therefore it's a lot of talks and sometimes not too much walks, but I think we're getting there much better. And when I started with the real legal texts from access to justice and the mass claims, passenger right ones and diesel ones, they are the ones who already started putting somehow AI on top of their services. And I think this is where we all can learn from. And they are, and I won't mention any names of them now, but they are very, very good connected to all the legal departments. And therefore, there's a lot of meetings, trainings, exchange at the moment, and hopefully at a point in time, some decisions to actually roll out something in the legal departments, but we're still getting there. So fear of missing out is huge. That's what I currently see.
Okay, I don't think that's I don't know if it's a German market only. I think the fear of missing out is really everywhere in the legal tech industry. But let's see now Austria. Wolfgang, can you explain us what happens in Austria?
I'll do my very best. Austria is a small country, as Switzerland. We also have 9 million inhabitants. We have roughly 7,000 lawyers, and almost half of them are working in single law firms, single offices. So the market is very fragmented. And we have 550 public notaries. Legal tech, if we understand it in a broad sense, already started in the 1980s in Austria, when the state started to digitize the land register and the company register. And in the 1990s, already they gave free access to all Supreme Court jurisdiction, and soon followed by the authentic publication of federal law via the internet, and by a system of mandatory digital communication between law firms and courts. And on the private side, also already in 1986, MANZ, the company I'm honored to work for, and two partners started the Austrian online legal database Rechtsschutz. So one could say from the very beginning, there was not too much room left for legal tech initiatives because Austria was early adopter as far as the juridical system was concerned. I would characterize today's status as follows. The drivers of digitization are certainly MANZ and LexisNexis via our databases. At the moment, there's a race for the first AI application, although perhaps the contest should better be who is the first to find a marketable business model for AI applications. There is only a handful of legal tech startups that were able to make their way successful in Austria, and many initiatives failed. The vendors of office management software, and only two of them have a significant market share, don't seem to engage in legal tech at all. But what's rather new is that medium and large law firms, and even small-sized law firms who are highly specialized in a certain topic, start to go their own digital way, often without using commercial products, but self-developments, or having developed solutions for themselves by companies. And so does corporate law. Last week we heard from Coop from Breiter that suddenly even the corporates have budgets for digitization. That's what's rather new. Currently, I see that the ability to use the own archive of firms with the help of large language models gains interest and gains traction. And obviously, this is a severe pain of the law firms not to be able to use their own content. And of course, this even could become a game changer if someone found a way to make this technology available not only to the big five, but also to the medium and small-sized law firms. The largest question mark in my view is Microsoft, and the question which influence will the Microsoft Copilot have on the legal industry? Because again, it costs 10 times as much to sell a new product to a customer than to sell additional functionality to an existing customer. And the truth is, Microsoft has every one of our target group already as customers. So this might turn out to be an interesting race. To sum up, I would say in Austria, the legal tech market in the public sector is highly mature, but only a handful of technical activities in the public sector really comes from the market. The other ones are self-developed, and in the private and commercial market, there's still room for new products and initiatives.
Okay, thank you very much for the overview of the three countries. So now some, but very, you didn't specifically mention, apart from Microsoft, of course, which is a DACH and all worldwide tech and probably legal tech provider at some point. But apart from that, can you, Alan, mention some specific tech for the DACH countries?
Sure, pleasure to do that. And good afternoon, everyone. Great to be with you this afternoon. So I will give 3 examples, which are very different. And I will start, from the first one, the business model, because we've heard perspective from law firms, we've heard perspective from law departments of big organizations. But then you have a third category of technology, which is technology targeting small businesses like startup. Because when you are a startup, you don't have too much money, but still you have, some very important points to address, like your shareholders agreements, setting up your website, and you can't afford, especially in Switzerland, very expensive lawyers in Geneva or Zurich. And then you have this company called Approved, APPROOVD, which is basically, the same business model as LegalZoom. Maybe you've heard about this big company in the US. It's close to 1 billion turnover. So basically what this tech company is doing is to provide tools to empower small businesses to manage legal activities. And I think that's really remarkable and quite unique because, here again, it's not, tech to help lawyers in law firms or in big, law departments of big companies. It's really to address a much niche market. So that's the first example. The second example, and, we heard about GenAI and the hype. And, and behind GenAI, you have the concept of large language model, large. But maybe, small can be beautiful as well. And Ioannis was, explaining Switzerland is a beautiful small country. And then you have some tech companies who said, well, you know what? Maybe actually you can take advantage of this amazing technology, generative AI, but with small data lake. And the example I would like to give you is PACTA, P-A-C-T-A, which is backed by Google. And they are based in Zurich. And those guys, what they are doing, they are specializing in a contract management system where, for German language contract, because what they were explaining is the contract you find in German language is very difficult to find. So that's really their area of specialty. And then they have built their own model. So that's a very interesting example. When you think about GenAI, yes, you have those big LLMs, but not only, and PACTA is a great example. And then the last one, and without disclosing any confidential information, I'm working with a company in Switzerland, and we are trying to help them not to buy an off-shelf product, which is another distinction. We are trying to help them build something. Because my own perspective is, when I look at GenAI, the big promise is about generating output and really like in a very consistent way. I'm a lawyer by background, so I can say it, lawyers, we tend to change our minds. And you have some very great studies in the US, showing that you give the same case to a judge at 10 a.m. in the morning, the same case at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. And in the morning, you will end up 3 years in jail, and in the afternoon, 10 years for the same case. So here, one of the big benefits of GenAI may be that one, which is to have consistent solution. And then for this client, the third example I wanted to give you, we are trying to build upon Microsoft Copilot with some API to leverage the data of this client. So here again, it's a combination between a large language model and the second layer of very specialized data of this client.
Good. Thanks for the three examples. That's really interesting because we have actually a nice overview of all your different backgrounds. Regarding those tech that you've mentioned, Alan, what would you say about the level of maturity? How do you define this level of maturity? And it's true that also preparing all this and looking at we had this fashion of the legal tech maps, you know, some years ago, we had all the maps of all the different countries, and it seemed that all of a sudden that's not really updated. I think in most of our countries, it's not updated anymore. So what's your point of view about that? And is the number of legal tech in each country or in each region, is it still a pertinent criteria to define this level of maturity of tech and legal tech?
Yeah,
what do you think?
Great question, Laura. So, and I made the LinkedIn post recently because, you know, I'm always smiling when, you know, for many people, you know, maturity equals how many tech do you have? And I will recommend, you know, everyone to, you know, there is a great ACC report from last year, which is providing a very good example of, you know, maturity. And I think, you know, that's really a critical message, which is maturity equates to many more things than tech. Tech, you know, is probably the last thing. And here, you know, I will refer to the great work of Colin, you know, where he explains that everyone thinks, oh, you know, I've got a magic bullet called technology, and it will solve all my issues. I'm speaking to you from Paris, and I was, you know, having lunch with a lawyer from a big organization, and all the pain points that person was describing to me were not relating to technology. They were relating to the organization. You know, think about like big companies. And, you know, with global, regional, and local levels. So even if you're in Switzerland, in Austria, or in Germany, you have many organizations which have actually, you know, like 1 or 2 or 3 layers. And this is a complexity because when you look at technology, it's about transformation. It's about, you know, the impact it has on the way people are working is huge. But unfortunately, this is what is super overlooked from my perspective. And if you want to drive a digital transformation program within the legal function, it's absolutely critical that, and that will be my criteria about maturity, back to your question, Laura, is number one, do you have a proper budget for that? And I think, you know, Wolfgang, you were explaining about budget. It's super important. You know, when you think a normal business, when you do a transformation, and I was in-house for 20 years, we did some big M&A project, and we had like triple-digit millions of budget to do this transformation. So then the question is, why will this not be possible for the legal function? And that's really what I'm trying to explain to clients, which then brings me to the second criteria, which is what is the positioning of the legal function within your organization? And, you know, again, there was this great report from Thomson Reuters last year again, and one of the key priority is cost. And from my perspective, this is wrong. Your priority should be how to become a value driver. But for this means that you need to have some KPIs, which brings me to the third criteria, which is, do you have very granular data points about what your lawyers are doing? And this is a simple question. Do you know how many complex contracts versus routine contracts your organization is doing today? I've been asking, you know, 200 organizations last year. I did not get a response. Why? No one has data. And that's back to the Harvard Law School study of 2022. 94% of the people involved in that survey says, I don't have data. And for me, this is a critical point. Make sure that you have a proper budget, you have the full support of the board of management. It's about transformation, and do your homework before jumping to technology, which is get the data, know where you are, understand your pain points. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, the lack of data is really the first, I agree, it's really the first mile that we need to achieve. And what this I'm going to ask to Henrik. How do you see the DACH region? So Germany, Austria, Switzerland. Is it really a region due to the same language in terms of market, of the legaltech market? What's your view on this?
I need to add one to what Alan said before, for a second only. So I think you mentioned the Microsoftization a little bit, and I think we should also, when we talk about budget and we talk about data, we should also certainly look at the re-Microsoftization which is happening at the moment, because there will be more budget, or it's already in the budget because it's part of the Microsoft environment. And there will be data because it's already inside the Microsoft world. So therefore, I really second what Wolfgang said earlier on the Microsoftization part of it. And we should certainly look at that, because we'll have the budget because it's already priced in, and we'll have the data at that point in time. Sorry, I don't really see that it's one market. DACH. I think it's 3 markets, and I think Ioannis and Wolfgang both stated why Switzerland and Austria are different from Germany. From the big law firm perspective, I'd say we all see that it's a mix of languages anyway we are doing. So it's still a lot of local language used in these 3 jurisdictions. And obviously not only language. So therefore, I'd say that's certainly similar, that we are still using a lot of German in this case to negotiate and actually collaborate, which might be different in other jurisdictions. But we, disclaimer, we lack of offices in Switzerland and Austria from Overy. But I have to say, it seems to be quite different, and at least as much different than I'd consider comparing German market to the Netherlands or even France. So we share the same language, but all the other things differ quite a lot. I think, again, talking about the ecosystem I mentioned before, it's quite interesting that when we look at the Vienna Legal Innovation Conference, that they are quite keen to also invite Swiss and German people to that conference, that Franz Kummer from Weblaw is trying and doing the same to always include Austria and Germany when he invites to the Zurich events. And we tend to see that from Legal Tech Verband in Germany as well. So there is exchange, and we are happy that we share the same language, but that doesn't make it one market, to be honest.
Okay, and then maybe you can also give your point of view on that, Wolfgang. Would you say then that there are more similarities between Germany and Austria in terms of market and ecosystem, leaving more aside Switzerland out of the equation because of Europe, because of...
My conclusion, my answer is a bit different from Henrik's. I think there are far more similarities than differences. Obviously the big difference is the market size, the size of the country as such, and the fact that a lot of large global companies is based in Germany as well as in Switzerland, but certainly not in Austria. That's the large difference, and this certainly reflects to big law. But for the large number of medium and small sized legal entities, I think the differences are not as big. What applies, in my view, to both countries, Austria and Germany, is a certain reluctance of officials, of chambers, of market participants and politicians to change anything. So they are rather interested in keeping the legal framework and the workflows as they always have been. and they've been for a long time. I've just investigated our old archives from the 19th century, and there's a lot of things that have never changed, especially our office contracts. So I would say the similarities prevail.
Okay, good to have two different point of view on that. Anything to reply, Henrik? No?
I mean, I try to simplify it a little bit and not say it's all the same. Certainly, it's not, but no, I'm happy to follow up offline, Wolfgang.
Okay.
Good. Now let's go and discuss a bit the specificity of the Swiss market with its, as you said, Ioannis, at the beginning, with its 4 official languages. So we have this specificity, we have the non-EU position, and so meaning, and you started discussing this a bit in your introduction, is it worthwhile for legal tech providers to actually invest in the Swiss market? I guess it is, but explain us why. I don't know, Alan, Ioannis. I think, Ioannis, you're talking, but we don't hear you.
Yes, sorry. I'm here. And of course, yes, it's worth investing in the Swiss market. And although Switzerland is not a member of the European Union, it is very much integrated in the European market, right? And as already explained, language diversity, and this refers to Henrik and Wolfgang's statements. Language diversity brings with it a certain hurdle, and even though it is almost forbidden to talk about it, depending on the use case, the common language of the DACH region can make it easier and more lucrative to do the market size for legal tech providers to expand in the DACH region. Of course, it depends on the use case. Can do everything, but it's a huge market, right? Especially from a Swiss perspective, looking at the German market. Yeah, I think that's an important point here. As already stated, it's largely legal departments, big law firms, legal expenses insurers, which are probably the most interesting partners for legal tech providers. And then Henrik also told us the access to justice aspect, and well, that's a bit of a pity. In the Swiss legal tech market, it's not yet of much benefit to ordinary citizens in Switzerland due to a lack of well-known platforms, lighthouse projects such as Flightright, which you already mentioned, or the Ragueneau group, Connie, and so on. And I mean, we have the same problems here as in other countries. Maybe it's even worse. Switzerland now has one of the most expensive justice systems in Europe. The costs have literally exploded in recent years, and they are increasingly being passed on to those seeking justice, which is a real problem. So enforcing your rights as a consumer, it's expensive, it's time-consuming, the courts are overburdened, and many people waive their rights, especially when it's not a matter of existence or life and death, right? But in my view, technology and innovation could play an important role in giving more people better access to justice, also here in Switzerland.
Good. Is there anything, Alan, that you would like to add? Maybe more compared with, you said you're in Paris currently, so I don't know, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I think, Switzerland is a very nice market to invest indeed, because you have many international companies with regional headquarters. And then when you think technology and you are client focused and you have been working, with clients for many years, you understand that this type of decision that will involve Switzerland, can be taken outside Switzerland. And some of the hubs, they are based in Zurich or in Geneva. You have, many famous companies. So, to be in contact with those people can make a lot of sense. But then going back to the budget topic, What will be very complex is the budget will be in between the legal guys, the IT guys, and it goes far above and beyond Microsoft. It's just one example.
I was thinking, I wonder whether there are examples of Swiss legal text that use your own specificity in terms of languages to then go to the French-speaking market, German-speaking market, Italian-speaking market. I don't know if it can be used as a hub also in this regard. No. Well, we can investigate this. Okay, now I would like to discuss a bit more specifically the legal tech startups. So I would like you, Wolfgang, if you could just talk to us a bit about specifically the startups and their ups and downs.
Yes, ups and downs. I've prepared one for each. I would like to mention Fairplane AT, the Austrian flag rate. I will not jump into the contest who was first, was more successful. The Austrian one was very successful. It was founded by a lawyer who built it up himself, and he was very successful, at least before the pandemic. Another one I'd like to mention is Notarity, a true legal startup, I think founded by students, that enables clients to sign documents with public notaries electronically without being in the same room in a secure environment. Now, why was Fairplane successful? Because there were thousands of customers who all had the same pain. The plane had been late and the airline refused to pay them their money. And Fairplane, as well as other supply trade, managed to streamline this process, to highly standardize this process on the basis of highly recurring cases. The other one is called Simplex Solutions. Simplex is a software to streamline applications for the Austrian company register. You have to know that if you want to have perhaps the address of the CEO of a company changed in the company register, you have to apply several documents, 5, 7, 8 documents, all of them containing the same data. And before Simplex, it was the duty of first-year associates to copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. Simplex Solutions was the ultimate solution. Simplex was the ultimate solution for this pain, and would save 2/3 of the time necessary. But nevertheless, Simplex had to be closed after a few years because of lack of customers. And yes, it was me who had bought shares of Simplex for our company from the founder, and it was also me to close it. So why was Simplex not successful? This brings me back to Alan. It's not always a question of time and budget, but it's also a question of culture, of processes that have to be changed or not should be changed. And we underestimated this topic dramatically. The issue was, this was a good product, it was very good for the associates, but the decision makers, they have pains. And they had their secretaries, the office clerks, that would potentially have lost their jobs, and they wanted to work. So these is 1 up, so 2 ups and 1 down from Austria.
Okay. Thanks for that, Wolfgang. it's usually quite complicated in Europe to actually hear about the downs and the failures. And I think it's really very interesting. Years ago, we organized with Legal Hackers a European summit, and we tried to organize a failure, a fuck up session, as we called it, and it was so complicated to get people actually accept to come and talk about their failures. I think that's one good thing we could learn about the US, right? Being open to talk about failures, also not only wins, yeah. But anyway, now because we don't have that many time left, we've been mentioning it, we've been talking Copilot, but of course we couldn't finish without talking about artificial intelligence and in general and Gen AI in particular. So let's end up talking a bit about that, as we couldn't avoid it. So my question would be for Alan, because you specialize in legal departments who are because you used to belong there and you now work with them. So from this perspective, how would you say that how law departments based in DACH countries should consider their strategy in terms of Gen AI?
Thanks a lot, Laura. So, when you are in-house, you always look at things from two perspectives. You look at things from a risk perspective, because yes, you're a law department, so you are deemed to be, managing risk, but you also should look at the opportunity. And then when I discuss with different organizations in the DACH region, it's always kind of these two faces. So when I look at the risk, like just a few, we've heard about the EU AI Act, but from my perspective, is only the tip of the iceberg, because you have more like underlying risk. I think about copyright. Probably most of you have seen all the ongoing litigation in the US, New York Times, suing OpenAI. And from my perspective, I delivered a speech last September in Singapore, and we may be looking at potentially a seismic risk, which is, imagine if tomorrow Microsoft gets an injunction saying you have to stop using Copilot because it's infringing the right of A, B, C, or D. So maybe, it may sound a bit theoretical, because when you read at, what the GC at Microsoft is saying, they seem to be very, very confident. But, let's see how things will turn out. And then another type of risk is ESG. Think all the energy you need to run all the data centers underlying AI. It's mind-blowing. And then if you have your company making claims about, complying with some ESG KPIs, can you meet those requirements if you are ramping up AI big time within your organization? So that's the risk side. Then you have the opportunity side, which is how can it help your lawyers to be more efficient and more effective and improve your legal service delivery model. And from my perspective, where the magic will happen is when all those Gen AI tools will reach a level of accuracy which is really, really good. And my understanding is that this will happen when you train the model with super highly qualitative data. So it's not like any kind of random data, but it's super highly qualitative data. And the concrete example when you're in-house is those tools that you develop for business people with no specific legal background, so that then you translate the legal language into human language through the machine language and vectorization. And that's how then you can build, an AI strategy for your law department.
Good, thanks, Alan. Yeah, probably going back to the ESG risk you were talking about, I guess that's way more of a concern for legal departments than for law firm. But then let's talk about law firms. Henrik, what about Gen AI in law firms? Well, you have your specific and an Overy path on this? And apart from that, maybe more generally, how do you see this in law firms?
Yeah, okay. Disclaimer first, that might be a bit of an Overy point of view here, although we are not the only ones who are using Harvey. PwC, for example, do that, and certainly there are many other law firms who already also do stuff. So far, I'd say what we have been doing feels successful. You mentioned fuck up stories before, and that's not a fuck up yet, but I think we'll laugh about what we have been doing in 1 or 2 years' time. I mean, it's sometimes very basic what we are offering to all of our lawyers, but at least we do that, and it's not experimental anymore. But I'm quite sure we'll laugh about what we've currently available for our lawyers. But we have it, and it's there, and it's available, and we can use it, and therefore, I mean, we've seen how much picture generation and video generation is possible nowadays, and we only bend text currently, but at least we're able to do that. And that feels not most innovative, but it feels good and all right for the moment. But we know that we must not stop there, and that there are still, although we have it available, that there are many concerns. There are people who use it once and say, okay, it hallucinated, I stop using it. And it's even if you have it available in the firm, it's a lot of work to make people actually use it for the second time when it failed for them for the first time. So honestly, I really like to fast forward 6 months or 12 months to see where we were there and where we can be, or where anyone will be in near future. And again, I need to mention Microsoft here. But I think currently, and again, disclaimer, that's the Overy point of view and not the law firm's point of view. We are quite proud of how we got there with Harvey and with a strong partnership with Microsoft to launch even our own product. And now, advertisement over. I think it's quite interesting that it got much better acceptance once we put it into Microsoft Word as an add-in, rather than having it as a browser-based something somewhere. And that's still the tool where the lawyers work. So therefore, for anyone who is doing anything, I'd always recommend to look where the lawyers are working, and that might be Microsoft Word, and you have something that you can put quite near to it. You should be better. Again, it might be funny what we have been doing in 1 or 2 years' time, but currently, at least we did something, we rolled it out, and honestly, it's not without criticism internally.
Yeah, once again, it's the people more than the tech, right? And the reluctance or willingness to use it. And yes, as you say, it's interestingly enough, we could just meet again in 6 months or in 12 months, and probably panorama would be already very different, and tools being rolled out would be different. Here, for example, in Spain, people are talking about Leia, this Swedish GenAI tool that has been adapted and preferred, I would say, by one of our big law firms here in Spain, sorry. So yes, it's really very, very interesting and incredibly fast-moving time for us all. I see that we have a question on the chat that maybe, Ioannis, you could be the person to answer to it. Laura Leach is asking, if legal tech companies are to invest in these regions, is there any association that we would need to partner with? For example, Clio is partnered with the Law Society of Ireland, the Law Society of Scotland, the Law Society of England and Wales. Does Switzerland have such associations?
Yes, we have such associations. Yeah, what can I mention? I'm vice president of the Swiss Legal Tech Association, so thank you for this question. It was not staged, yeah. But yeah, there is the Swiss Legal Tech Association, and we try to connect all the important stakeholders in the Swiss markets around law and legal tech. So yes, please join our association. It's the only one, yeah.
Well, and there is ELTA too, if you're interested. We all belong to ELTA, so you can also come closer to ELTA. And before I let all of you wrap up with one sentence to conclude, I also wanted to mention the initiative of Stefan Eder, which is also of Austria, and he's advertising it on social media lately. He's organizing a law as code hackathon, which will take place, I think, in the last quarter of this year. And they're looking for all kind of actually people willing to get involved, partnering, sponsoring, and so they're aiming at finding coding solutions to legal text. So there's a lot going on in this region. So really, I think it would be really wise to come closer to our ELTA ambassadors and ask and participate to all this initiative, because as we said before, innovation is definitely a lot about the people and not only about the tech. Let's have each of you provide your own conclusion. So we can start with Ioannis.
Sure, why not? So yeah, my last statement can be legal tech will continue to change the legal market, also in Switzerland, also in the DACH region, incrementally. It's rather an evolution than a revolution, as we already heard from the other panelists here. But always bear in mind that legal tech has more to do with empowerment than disruption. And I think that's why it's worth getting to grips with the subject. And of course, becoming a member of the European Legal Tech Association as well. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Ioannis. Wolfgang.
I would say whether you are a founder or a vendor or a user, customer of legal tech, never underestimate the effort to change existing processes and make your homework first.
Thank you. Alan.
So, it's a journey. Know where you are, know where you want to go, and don't rush to tech. As you were saying, Laura, it's more and beyond technology. People is very important. Understanding the organization is also very important. So, if you want to know where you are, feel free to reach out. And a big thanks to you, Laura, for doing a fantastic job on moderating the 4 guys around. Thanks.
It's a pleasure. You, Henrik.
Yeah, my one is also on that networking. So let's continue with that human effort and as much human effort as possible on building and strengthening these networks. Let's be aware of that we are inside a bubble, but let's try to crack it from time to time and really try to collaborate, maybe even for better peace out there.
Thank you. Yes, and my own conclusion would be to really thank all of our speakers for your time, for your willingness to participate, and mostly for your enthusiasm in your own jurisdiction in promoting legal tech, legal innovation. I at least would definitely say that the best I take for all this time working in this space is definitely the people. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining, and feel free to reach out. Bye-bye.